What do you look for? If you've got a face-to-face meeting and going in to see a client, what would be the things that you'll be looking out for before you even go into the client or when you arrive at their business?
Well, the first thing is you do your research on who the customer is, the organisation, what the organisation's all about, and try to understand what their motives are. Now, sometimes you may not have a hell of a lot of information other than this is with the industry that they're in, or this is the government place where they're at, their jurisdiction, etc. Much research as possible makes sense, but what you may need to do is then look at, do a stake out the outside of the place. You've driven up there, you've assessed the lay of the land, you're seeing vehicles parked at the front, there may be charge stations at the front. Okay, here's an organisation that's invested in EVs. You might park at the front and there's all BMWs and Mercedes-Benzes in the front row. Well, this is a salary packaging organisation. Obviously, they're not a tool of trade. So then you want to the next step is, right, so what product offering have you got that you need to prepare yourself with? But even before you get to the point of telling your story, the most important thing is assessing the story of the customer. So how many cars are in the yard? What are they? What does the building look like? Is this a business that it's all about the image of the building, the brand, the vehicles? Are they extension of? Are there reps on the road? Are there other operatives? Are they tool of trade vehicles? Are they work vehicles? Are they utes? Are they vans? What are they sign written like? What are the condition of the vans? Even before we go in there, you can get a quick read whether they maintain or whether they're all about running the vehicles into the ground. So all of these things. OH&S is a big thing. Environment's a big thing. Whole of life cost is a big thing. So understanding those three elements, you can even pick up the non-verbals before you even get in there. Once you're in there, the next step is the gatekeeper of reception, but then once you're physically face-to-face with the buyer or the manager or the fleet manager or the operative who's going to be a decision maker in this, could be the finance director, you'll quickly pick up what is important to them, what are their values, and what problems. The key word here is problem. What problem can you solve for them? Because if I'm the finance director, or you might be meeting with the HR person, HR will just want something that's going to attract and retain quality people. The finance director will want lowest cost, but as long as that person gets a good vehicle. The fleet manager will be, I'm cost driven, but I just need operationally to make sure I've got the best vehicles, because that's my biggest pain point, is the aggravation of the drivers complaining about the cars to me. So these are the things you need to be prepared with as far as how am I going to address each one of those three individuals should they be in the meeting, and tailor my presentation to that when I'm in there. So you've got to be able to be flexible. You've got to know what you're going to offer.
So what are the type of questions you'll be asking, Mark? How do you phrase the questions and how do you position them to get the right information back?
Well, the first thing, John, you raise a very good point. The first thing you've got to do is ask questions. And the best thing is that you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. 2 ears to listen, 1 mouth to ask the question. So you ask a question and then you zip it. You shut up and you let the customer tell you the story. And open questions, there'll be situational questions. Situational questions don't really drive much on the emotion side of things. Oh, yes, I've got a fleet of 50 cars. Oh, yeah, and they're all 4-wheel drives. Oh, yes, they're all diesel. And yes, I keep them for 5 years. They're situational questions. You need to know those. The important phase is, once you get past the situational questions, is to ask the problem questions. But you need to set the tone. Situation, yeah, I can send it to you in an email. But where you're going to get the value, where you're going to get the gem that's going to take you to the next step, are the questions that you ask around, what are the problems that you have with your current state? Because if they're happy with their current state, it's going to be hard for you to move them to something else. But most people won't be happy with their current state. So you need to find out, well, what's the issue with the current state? And they might say, well, our fuel bill's too high given the price of the fuel's going up, or we're under pressure to go for EV, or we're under pressure to switch away from tool of trade vehicles and everyone wants to get a salary package and choose their own car, or we're going to get a car allowances. So what solution can you give for that? But the important bit is you ask a question, what's the problem? The next question you want to ask, once you've established the problem, is you want to understand the implications. So what you need to do is build the pain with the customer. But you're not building the pain because of you. You're just building on their pain. So if I've got a problem where I've got this guy giving me, he's in my neck, or this CEO, she's in my neck about getting more EVs on the fleet. Well, I need to put more charge points in, and I need to convince the staff that they're going to have charge points, there's going to be enough range anxiety to get around, and they'll be able to do their jobs, and they won't run out of charge. So what are the implications if you get it wrong? Oh, implications are I'll have people off-road. Oh, is that a good thing? No, that's bad. Oh, and then you'd have complaints. Yeah, I am. That's bad. So you build on the implication. So then you hit them with the needs payoff. All right, so what are my needs payoff? My needs payoff is if I could give you a vehicle that has range, that gets rid of that range anxiety, and I can give you a vehicle that gives you a good residual value, does that get the finance director off your case? Or if you're the finance director, does that make you happy? Oh, yes, it will, because it means I can tick that box of implication there. And if I don't have the problem with staff, yes, that ticks my back. That's a needs payoff for me. So I'm ticking the box of needs payoff. But I won't know to say that unless I ask the questions. But these are the issues that you have with a face-to-face. In a face-to-face, the beauty that you have is you can look around the room while they're talking. You can see that, oh, they've got a competitor baseball cap on the shelf behind them, or there's a picture of them with a signed football from another competitor. So you can say, okay, these are the people that I'm up against that are emotionally linked into this particular client. Because people don't keep these artifacts in their offices unless there's a link. And that's the beauty of hospitality, is you get emotionally attached to the client, or they have an emotional attachment to you in some way, shape or form. So the challenges in the post-COVID world is, all right, you're relying on Zoom. How can you pick up on the non-verbals? How can you have a quality conversation with that customer or prospect where you're seeing any of that? So you really have to focus on building the pain and getting to what are their main problems and building that pain and then giving them a solution to the pain. But you can only give the solution once you've built the pain. If you go in with a solution straight away, you will be less effective than your competitor that's going in there and building the pain about this is the problem that this customer has. But the downside is you're not going to get all those other elements. You're not going to see what's in the front yard. You're not going to necessarily see the building. And if you do meet with them off-site, usually they're off-site away from their work. So this is where you really have to build on the personal connection first, wherever possible. If you're at a cafe just down the road near where they live, you really need to build that trust and, hey, this is Mark and I'm here to help you. And that's how there has to be the premise of when you make the appointment with them to actually get that. The challenge will be getting the appointment made. There still is a reluctance, but the best thing is this will be behind us. These times will not last forever. So John, your thoughts on effective ways of connecting to people before you do the face-to-face?
I think it's always a difficult one, Mark. So you have to try and do things, because if you go in a hard sell, it already puts people on the offensive. They say, oh no, we already got a solution and we're not interested. So it's trying to break that down and trying to find ways to touch base with people, but not necessarily having to sell to them. Because if you try and sell in that first instance, I think it makes it very difficult. So it's trying to find ways to build contact, but not necessarily sell to them. And then once you've started the discussion, hopefully things will come out of that discussion. We say, well, now, there's an issue here, there's a problem there. And then you can try and build on that and see if you can find some sort of solution for them.
The key there, and the way I see it, John, a very effective tool is LinkedIn from a B2B and B2G perspective, because those operatives usually have a little bit more time on their hand and they will be looking at LinkedIn in the main. So LinkedIn is a way that you can target those operatives first and foremost with communication. Now, the downside is if you just go straight in cold, more than likely than not, if they don't know you, they don't know who you are, and they don't know your brand, you're really an uphill battle. If you're part of a group or a brand that people want to know more about or want to connect with, lead in with that brand. Use that brand to your advantage, that you can help them with X, because this is the opening of the door is the important part. Challenger brands, being a BDM with a challenger brand, is hard work. So in those instances, you need to lead in with some sort of information. It's like the newsletter type process of old school, but it's still a good tool to use to say, here's some information. And use LinkedIn to target those people from an informative perspective to set up and give yourself some credibility so that when you do reach out, they can say, oh yeah, there's John, I've seen him on LinkedIn, that makes sense, I'll talk to him. All right? They're the opportunities and the processes with this new world or the new normal now, which is this hybrid face-to-face and also business development in the online space.
And Mark, in this sort of space we're at the moment, do you think it's worth reaching out and trying to set up those face-to-face meetings for
Absolutely.
coffee, or should you be doing that, or should you still hold off for the time being?
Fortune favours the brave. And the B2B operatives getting out there and being face-to-face will put you ahead of the game of your opposition. Getting out and face-to-face, there is no substitute for it. Zoom is a fantastic tool to deal with remoteness, but really if you want to embrace it and get the most out of it, there is no substitute for face-to-face. Because the reason why face-to-face works the best, it addresses 3 elements of communication: verbal, visual, and kinesthetic. So Zoom is purely verbal and visual. You're not getting the kinesthetic human element that we have. And that gets back to that whole primal brain that we have as individuals. It's that gut feel. I'm physically with you. When I'm physically with you, all 5 senses come into play. There's a sense of touch from a shaking of a hand, even though you need to use hand sanitizer, but there's that. There's the smell, there's the listening, there's the taste if you're having a coffee. I remember I had a good coffee when I was with John. We had a good conversation, right? There's the cookie that we had if need be, or a croissant. If you're taking out for a breakfast meeting, it's a nice meal. Yes, I remember this really good meal. Geez, the place was fantastic. The burgers or the smell of the eggs were amazing. These are the elements that people will remember. People don't necessarily remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And that's why if the faster you can get back to a face-to-face in some way, shape or form, even the delivery of a proposal, delivering it in person or somehow having a human connection will put you as an advantage to someone who's not doing it.